Imagine your top legal counsel abruptly stepping down just 2 months before a critical deadline, leaving behind a maze of unanswered questions and a race against time. That's exactly the predicament Sean Diddy Combs now faces.
A situation one of Diddy's attorneys won't be part of, Rico announcing in court docs, under no circumstances can he continue defending the embattled rapper.
Serious proceeding with serious consequences, and all of us are addressing it accordingly.
In a motion filed on Thursday, Rico stopped short of revealing why he's stepping down from Diddy's legal team, just months ahead of the music mogul's scheduled trial date in May for sex trafficking and racketeering charges, all of which Diddy.
The king called it the law of unintended consequences. So sometimes the more you push a person down,
In a stunning court filing that has sent shockwaves through the celebrity legal world, Anthony Rue, a veteran attorney renowned for handling high-stakes cases like the World Trade Center bombing investigation, has abruptly withdrawn from representing Diddy. With the trial fast approaching on May 5, 2025, his sudden departure could change.
Defense attorneys is quitting, according to reports. Anthony Rico filed the motion yesterday saying he can no longer effectively serve as counsel for the disgraced music mogul. This reportedly came after Rico spoke with the head of his legal team. A judge would still have to sign off on his decision to step aside. Diddy has pled not guilty.
Attorneys has decided to drop out. Our friends with the Jasmine brand write this. It said Diddy's legal team is facing a shakeup as his attorney, Tony Rico, files to withdraw from the case. In a motion on Friday in New York, Rico stated that under no circumstances can I continue to serve as counsel for Sean Combs, consistent with the ABA standards for criminal justice. This comes after Diddy's legal team sought to have certain charges dismissed, citing racial discrimination. This is exactly what the motion says, and then we can unpack a little bit about what this could mean for Diddy. According to the motion, it says Anthony L. Rico Esquire, pursuant to Title 28 United States Code, Section 1746, hereby declares under the penalties of perjury. On September 22nd of 2024, I was retained by the defendant, Sean Combs, to serve as his counsel.
Behind closed courtroom doors, whispers of turmoil within Diddy's defense team have only grown louder. What pushed Anthony Rue to declare, "Under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel"? Was it a clash over legal strategy, evidence too damning to overlook, or a complete breakdown in communication? These unanswered questions now reverberate through the halls of power as the
and it's tough to know the reason why. It could be any number of possibilities. Sometimes it's when the lawyer hasn't been paid, but we know obviously Diddy doesn't have that problem. He's got plenty of money. It could be a disagreement regarding defense strategy. It could be a conflict. Mark Agnifilo is still on the case, and the other counsel of record leads me to believe that the judge is going to rubber stamp this motion.
Lead as counsel for Sean Combs. As a result of discussions with the lead counsel, Mark Agnifilo, this motion for the withdrawal of counsel is filed. While I'm aware that the local rule requires that an application for withdrawal of counsel is supported and granted only upon a showing of by affidavit or otherwise of satisfactory reasons for withdrawal, there are sufficient reasons related to the protections afforded by the attorney-client privilege for brevity in application for withdrawal as counsel in this case. Although I have provided Sean Combs with the highest level of legal representation expected by the court, under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs, consistent with the ABA standards.
Rue's motion to withdraw, filed in New York federal court on a now infamous Thursday, was anything but impulsive. Court documents reveal that Rue, a Harlem native with a formidable legal track record, cited irreconcilable differences with his colleagues, particularly lead attorney Mark Agian. Allegedly, Agian's tight grip on the case left little room for direct communication with Diddy. In his filing, Rue made it clear that internal disputes had severely compromised his ability to serve his client effectively, hinting at deeper fractures within the defense.
Right? A disagreement. They just don't get along. The communication is poor. They don't agree on defense strategy. The conflict with one of the other lawyers. Obviously, seems like Agnifilo is the lead on this case, although Rico was certainly his 1B. And I know obviously there's other lawyers on the case. Obviously, a lot of the victims are female. They're going to want female lawyers on the defense team, especially during some of the aggressive cross-examination. That tends to be the conventional wisdom when you're dealing with victims who are alleged victims of sexual assault or abuse. And then it could be a conflict with one of the victims themselves. Maybe maybe Rico consulted with them or even represented them in such a way that he has to get off the case. So it could be any number of potential.
The lead person behind that request and Diddy's team is defense attorney Mark Agnifilo. If that name is familiar to you, it may be because you've heard it before. He's repped several high-profile defendants, like the NXIVM cult leader Keith Raniere and Roger Goldman Sachs banker convicted of bribery and money laundering. We'll get to those cases in a second, but first, a bit about Agnifilo's history. He received a bachelor's degree in philosophy and political science from Connecticut College in 1986. In 1990, he received his Juris degree from Brooklyn Law School, and while there, even received the American Jurisprudence Award for Outstanding Performance in Trial Advocacy. Starting in 1998, Agnifilo began his work at the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of New Jersey. There, he worked as the chief of Violent Crime Unit and specialized in cases involving murder, money laundering, extortion, and drug trafficking. During his tenure there, Agnifilo became a nationally recognized expert in sophisticated criminal prosecutions and the RICO statute, the very same statute that Diddy is now charged under. Agnifilo stayed with the U.S. Attorney's Office until 2006, when he began work at the...
For Diddy, facing charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation for prostitution, the stakes couldn't be higher. Having pleaded not guilty, the Bad Boy Records founder remains confined to Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, where legal battles have replaced boardroom triumphs. With bail repeatedly denied, every fracture within his defense team threatens to become a catastrophic misstep. Rue's departure doesn't just leave a void in legal expertise. It shines a glaring spotlight on the growing chaos.
About 6 months away from trial, and something would have to dramatically change in terms of counts being dropped, witnesses, again, not supporting the allegations in the indictment. And really, the only one that's identified so far as V1 is Cassie Ventura. So I don't know how a change in the evidence would support. And like you said, it just keeps getting worse for Combs. Right. He's his worst enemy. And we say this all the time for criminal defendants, right? How many times do these jail calls come into evidence in the cases we cover here on Law and Crime, right? Even though the inmates are informed in writing, and even at the beginning of their phone calls, that their calls are recorded, they still make these phone calls, make admissions that can be used against him, or in this particular case, engage in alleged witness tampering. That's going to be
representations to the court, his court and another court, that they might not have been totally transparent about what was going on. Do you think that if this didn't happen, he might have been more receptive to Sean Combs' plea for bail? Why I say that is, let's say Sean Combs was to get completely different lawyers, right? Completely different lawyers. Could that change the analysis?
Potentially, but there was either outright misleading or attorneys who can't control their client. And one very important point in the judge's order was Combs was using hack numbers and software to mask his phone calls as of recently, as of November 24th, even after the bail hearing. So that's something that the judge cited to, saying, hey, you're saying your client is no longer violating BOP rules and the MDC rules with respect to these phones, but he's doing it even after the hearing.
Inside legal circles, the fallout is already sending shockwaves. It's become a real show, an anonymous insider told Deadline. *, they're desperate to avoid trial, throwing everything at the wall and praying something sticks. *, with just 5 attorneys left, including Mark Agnifilo and Tinny Goes, the daughter of renowned attorney Mark Goes, the defense team is under mounting pressure from federal prosecutors. Every internal dispute now risks becoming ammunition in a trial known for its relentless prosecution and meticulous...
Really, you still need to protect the client and the confidences, so you don't want to say something that may jeopardize him or the case. And you also need leave or permission of the judge. So you want to provide enough So the judge knows that you're not leaving the client high and dry, but you don't want to provide too much that may compromise defense strategy or a weakness in the case or some other issue that would hurt the client. So it is a delicate balancing.
We are speculating about that when the trial date hasn't even started yet. Concerns me because I'm one of those people, ladies and gentlemen, who firmly believes it's virtually impossible to find a jury that's not contaminated by some kind of information that's been put out to the public before a trial begins. I'm not one of those that believes that. May 5th is May 5th. I mean, come on now. That's more than 2 months away. Jury ain't been selected yet. You trying to tell me nobody that's on the jury will have heard that a lawyer backed out of the case? I don't know about y'all, but I find that that's not a good thing for...
The case against Diddy is built on a mountain of compelling evidence, from vast electronic data troves to damning witness testimonies. The federal charges, particularly the racketeering allegation.
Paragraph of the federal indictment lays out the government's case in dramatic detail, alleging that, quote, for decades, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct by relying on a criminal enterprise he created, which engaged in sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient.
Client, if Sean Diddy Combs gets off sex trafficking and racketeering charges and the jury finds him not guilty months from now and he's able to walk out the courtroom a free man, you know how good that makes those attorneys look? Everybody will be clamoring for the cameras. Every single one of them. They'll be going crazy. They'll all be clamoring for the cameras. Saying all of that to you to say, if that's the case, let's understand what we're talking about here. It's very, very important that we do that. An attorney walking away.
Amid the legal turmoil, a bizarre twist has taken the internet by storm. A viral TikTok claim suggested that Rue quit over a so-called necromancy charge, a rumor swiftly debunked by legal experts. There is no evidence nor any legal basis linking necromancy to Diddy's charges.
Quit. Now, this is a man that once represented Osama bin Laden, and he has said, allegedly, that under no circumstances, can I continue to work for P. Diddy. Do you know how much of a corrupt, villain, evil person P. Diddy must be to make a lawyer that's once worked with Osama bin Laden quit? The man has represented the worst of the worst, yet he doesn't want to work for P. Diddy and represent him because one of his charges is something called necromancy. Now, I've just Googled it and I am disgusted. But yeah, this has been enough to make his lawyer not want to work with him anymore. Surely this just speaks volumes as to how guilty he actually is, because a lawyer is used to representing guilty people. The fact that he is used to representing high profile people like bin Laden but doesn't want to represent Diddy, surely that shows you just how deep and twisted.
What does this mean for Diddy's future? With the trial date looming and the legal clock ticking, every move is critical. His decades-built empire, spanning music, fashion, and business, now teeters on the brink of collapse.
The defense, the consent, because look, sometimes you can argue that the sexual activity never happened, right? You know, it wasn't me, defense. But this is not your typical sexual assault case. There are a lot of people there, right? There are people that are arranging the sex workers. There are people that are setting up lights and cameras, booking hotel rooms. Obviously, Diddy has a large entourage. So there's a lot of witnesses there, and a lot of this was allegedly recorded. So I think it's going to be very difficult to argue that it wasn't me. So you're going to have to argue that it was consensual. And we've talked about the line that separates sex trafficking from consensual sex. It's that force, fraud, or coercion. So I fully expect the defense to be, this was all consensual. These are all people who are trying to shake Diddy down for money. This is all extortion. That's why they're pursuing these claims. They're just piling on. But really, this is regret, not rape. And I think that's the defense strategy.